I'd been working at the Blackwell mansion for 6 months when everything changed. 6 months of scrubbing floors, folding linens, and keeping my head down while my heart broke every single day. People think working for a man like Damon Blackwell would be terrifying, and maybe it should have been. He controlled half the underground operations in the city, commanded respect with a single glance, and had eyes that could freeze someone mid-sentence. But terror wasn't what I felt when I walked these halls. Guilt was. Because 3 years ago, I'd stolen his son. November 8th. That's the day Noah Blackwell supposedly died. The day Damon buried an empty coffin and screamed until his voice shattered. The day I became a thief, a liar, and the only person standing between a 7-year-old boy and the men who wanted him dead. Tonight was the anniversary. I waited until the mansion settled into silence, until the security rotation moved to the east wing, until I was certain no one would notice me slipping through the servants' entrance. The cemetery sat 2 miles outside the estate, tucked behind iron gates that never locked properly. I'd been there every week for 3 years, maintaining the illusion, playing my part in a grief that should have destroyed me, but instead kept me moving forward. The path through the graveyard wound between marble headstones and elaborate monuments. Old money, the kind that built dynasties and buried secrets in consecrated ground. The Blackwell family plot occupied the far corner, a collection of graves dating back generations. And there, beneath a small oak tree, stood the newest addition. A headstone carved from black granite, simple and heartbreaking in its brevity. Noah Damon Blackwell, beloved son, gone too soon. I knelt in the damp grass, my knees soaking through immediately. November in New England meant cold nights and colder rain, the kind that seeped into your bones and refused to leave. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the small red toy truck I'd brought, Noah's favorite before everything happened. He'd gotten a new one since then, but this original had been mine to keep, a reminder of the life I'd interrupted. "Hey, sweetheart," I whispered, placing the truck on the stone. "I brought you something." Talking to an empty grave felt insane, but it was necessary. Anyone watching needed to believe I was just an overly attached maid who'd cared for the young prince before his death. Sentimental, maybe a little obsessed, but harmless. That's what kept Noah safe. That's what kept me alive. "He's doing well," I continued softly. "Growing like a weed. You wouldn't believe how tall he's gotten. Grace says he's going to be taller than his father someday." The words caught in my throat. His father, Damon Blackwell, who walked past me every day without knowing I held the answer to 3 years of anguish, who trusted me to clean his study, serve his meals, exist in his space like furniture he'd stopped noticing. "He asks about you sometimes," I said, my voice breaking. "About his parents. I tell him they were brave and kind and that they loved him more than anything. I tell him they died protecting him from bad people." Thunder rumbled overhead. I glanced up as the clouds opened, releasing sheets of water that plastered my hair to my face within seconds. Perfect. Even the weather wanted to punish me tonight. I pulled out the photo I'd developed last week, Noah grinning at the beach, his dark hair windswept, and his brown eyes bright with joy. I'd meant to keep it in my room, tucked safely in my journal where no one would find it. But tonight, the anniversary of his supposed death, I'd wanted to bring something real. Something that proved he was happy and healthy and alive. "I have to go," I murmured, tucking the photo back into my jacket pocket. "But I'll be back next week. I promise." I stood, wiping rain from my eyes, and that's when I saw him. Damon Blackwell stood 10 feet away, partially hidden by the shadow of a mausoleum, his dark suit soaked through and his eyes fixed on me with an intensity that stopped my heart. How long had he been there? What had he heard? "Mr. Blackwell," I gasped, taking an involuntary step backward. "I didn't know you were here. I'm sorry, I should leave. Why are you at my son's grave?" His voice cut through the rain, sharp and cold. My mind raced. Lie. Make it believable. "I worked in the house when he was alive, sir. I just wanted to pay my respects on the anniversary." He moved closer, water streaming down his face. At 38, Damon Blackwell was still devastatingly handsome. The kind of man who commanded attention without trying. Dark hair, darker eyes, a jawline that could cut glass, and a presence that made rooms feel smaller. But tonight, standing in a graveyard in the pouring rain, he looked haunted. "You come here every week," he said. "I've seen the flowers, always fresh, always on the same day." My breath hitched. He'd been watching? "I just thought someone should remember him regularly, sir." "I know it's not my place. You didn't know him." It wasn't a question. It was an accusation wrapped in suspicion. "I served his meals sometimes, changed his sheets. He was always polite, always kind. I just thought he deserved to be remembered by someone who saw how special he was." Damon stared at me, his gaze stripping away every defense I'd carefully constructed. "What's your name?" "Lily Morrison, sir." "How long have you worked for me, Lily Morrison?" 6 months. "When did you start?" I swallowed hard. 3 years ago. Right after what happened. His eyes narrowed. "You started working for me immediately after my son died, and you visit his grave every week. That doesn't strike you as strange?" "I needed work, sir. The position was available, and visiting the grave, it helps me remember why I'm grateful for what I have. Life is fragile." He stepped closer, close enough that I could see the rain clinging to his eyelashes, the muscle ticking in his jaw. "You're lying." "I'm not, I swear." "Then why are you crying?" I hadn't realized tears were streaming down my face, mixing with the rain. "Because it's sad, sir. He was just a child. He deserved more time." Damon's expression shifted, something dangerous flickering behind his eyes. "Leave. Now." I turned to flee, my boots slipping on wet grass. In my panic, I didn't notice the photo sliding from my jacket pocket until I was already 20 feet away. By the time I realized and spun back, Damon was crouching in the mud, holding the Polaroid in his hands. Time stopped. He stared at the image, his entire body going rigid. Noah's face, bright and alive, with a date stamp from 2 weeks ago visible in the corner. I watched the realization hit him like a physical blow, his knees nearly buckling as he looked up at me with an expression of pure, unadulterated shock. "He's alive," Damon whispered. I ran. I sprinted through the cemetery, vaulting over low headstones and crashing through puddles, my lungs burning and my vision blurred by rain and tears. Behind me, I heard him shouting, but I didn't stop. Couldn't stop. If he caught me now, before I could explain, before I could make him understand, everything would fall apart. The mansion loomed ahead, its windows dark except for the security lights. I slipped through the servants' entrance, my hands shaking so badly I could barely turn the handle. Inside, I pressed myself against the wall, gasping for air, my entire body trembling. What had I done? 3 years of careful planning, of meticulous secrecy, destroyed by one photograph. Damon knew. He knew Noah was alive, and he'd seen my face, connected me to the truth. By morning, he'd have me dragged to his office. By afternoon, he'd know everything. I staggered to my room, a small space on the 3rd floor with a narrow bed and a single window. I needed to pack, needed to warn Grace, needed to get Noah somewhere safer before Damon's fury caught up with us all. But my hands wouldn't stop shaking, and my mind kept replaying the look on his face when he'd seen that photo. Not anger, shock, and beneath it, something that looked almost like hope. I collapsed onto the bed, still soaked through, and stared at the ceiling. 3 years ago, I'd been a 23-year-old emergency room nurse with a normal life in a quiet apartment. Then Noah Blackwell had been wheeled into my ER, barely breathing, with 2 men in expensive suits discussing how to make certain he didn't survive the night. I'd recognized one of them. Vincent Crane, Damon Blackwell's most trusted advisor, standing in the hallway and calmly planning a child's murder. I'd made a choice in that moment that changed everything. I falsified the death certificate, smuggled Noah out through the morgue, and ran. My Aunt Grace had been a nurse too before retiring to a coastal town 3 hours away. She'd taken Noah without hesitation, understood the stakes, agreed to help me hide him while I figured out who wanted him dead and why. The answer had been Vincent. Vincent and his alliance with the Rossi family, planning to eliminate Damon's heir and then Damon himself, clearing the path for a hostile takeover of Blackwell operations. I'd discovered it through months of careful observation, working as a maid in the mansion while gathering evidence and watching for threats. But I'd never planned on Damon finding out like this. I'd imagined someday, when Vincent was exposed and Noah was safe, I might find a way to tell him the truth. A controlled revelation, carefully managed. Not this. Not a photograph dropped in a graveyard cemetery in the rain. A knock on my door made me jump. I sat up, my heart hammering. Yes? Ms. Morrison? A male voice, one of the house security guards. Mr. Blackwell requests your presence in his study, immediately. I closed my eyes. Here it was. The reckoning I'd been dreading for 3 years. I'll be down in 5 minutes. He said immediately, ma'am. I stood, still dripping wet, and followed the guard through silent hallways to Damon's private study. The door stood open, golden light spilling into the corridor. Damon sat behind his desk, the photograph placed carefully in front of him, his hands folded and his expression unreadable. Close the door, he said quietly. I obeyed, my legs barely holding me upright. Sit. I sat in the chair across from him, water pooling beneath me on the expensive carpet. Damon picked up the photograph, studying it as if memorizing every detail. This was taken 2 weeks ago. Yes. At a beach. Yes. My son, who I buried 3 years ago, is alive and at a beach. His voice remained calm, which somehow made it more terrifying. Explain. Where did I even start? He never died. The accident, the hospital, it was all planned. Men wanted him dead, and I stopped them. You stopped them. He repeated the words like they were in a foreign language. You're a maid. I was a nurse. At St. Catherine's emergency room. They brought Noah in after the car crash. He was critical but stable. I heard 2 men discussing how to ensure he didn't make it through the night. One of them was Vincent Crane. Damon's expression didn't change, but his knuckles went white. Vincent. I didn't know if you were involved, I continued quickly. I didn't know who to trust. So I made a decision. I falsified the records, declared him dead, and took him. My aunt lives in a coastal town. She's been caring for him ever since. You kidnapped my son. I saved your son. I corrected, meeting his eyes. Those men would have killed him that night. Instead, he's alive and safe and happy. And you've been working in my house for 3 years, watching me grieve, letting me believe my child was dead. His voice finally broke, raw pain bleeding through the control. Do you have any idea what you've put me through? Yes, I whispered. I see it every day, but I couldn't tell you. Not until I knew it was safe. Not until I knew who was behind the attempt on his life. And now you know? Vincent Crane. He's working with the Rossi family. They want control of your operations. Noah was the first obstacle. You're the second. Damon stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. He turned toward the window, his back rigid. I want to see him. Mr. Blackwell. I want to see my son. He spun back, and for the first time I saw tears on his face. You will take me to him. Tonight. Right now. It's a 3-hour drive. I don't care if it's a 3-day drive. His voice cracked. You've kept him from me for 3 years. You don't get to keep him for 3 more hours. I stood slowly. If you go there unprepared, if you walk in and tell him who you are, you'll terrify him. He doesn't remember you. He thinks his parents died in the accident. Damon flinched like I'd struck him. I'll take you, I said softly, but you have to let me prepare him first. You have to trust me to do this right. Trust you? He laughed bitterly. You stole my son. I saved your son. I repeated. And I'll help you get him back. But only if you let me do this my way. We drove through the night in silence, Damon's hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles had gone pale. He'd insisted on driving himself, dismissed his security detail, and refused to speak beyond clipped directions. I sat in the passenger seat of his black Mercedes, watching the highway stretch endlessly before us, wondering if I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life. 3 hours to tell him everything. 3 hours to make him understand why I'd done what I'd done, and why Vincent Crane couldn't know that Noah was alive. 3 hours to prepare him for seeing his son again. Start talking, Damon finally said, his voice flat. Tell me everything that happened that night. I took a breath. It was November 8th, 3 years ago. I was working the night shift at St. Catherine's. Around 9 p.m., they brought in a child from a car accident. Head trauma, internal bleeding, critical condition. The attending physician was Dr. Harrison. He stabilized Noah while I monitored vitals. Noah was in critical condition? Damon's voice cracked slightly. Yes, but Dr. Harrison is excellent at his job. Within an hour, Noah was stable, still unconscious, but his vitals were improving. The doctor said he'd likely make a full recovery with time. Damon exhaled shakily. Then what happened? Around 11 p.m., 2 men arrived. They wore suits, expensive ones, and they didn't behave like concerned family friends. They stood outside Noah's room, talking in low voices. I was checking on another patient nearby and overheard them. I closed my eyes, remembering every word. One of them said, "The boy needs to die tonight. Make it look like complications from the injuries." The other asked how. The first one said, "An air embolism. Quick, nearly undetectable if done right. Just make certain no one sees you enter the room." Damon's jaw clenched. "You recognize them?" "One of them, Vincent Crane. I'd seen his photo in the news before, standing beside you at charity events. The other man I didn't recognize at the time, but I later found out he was a Rossi family associate." "Vincent," Damon said again, like he was testing the name, trying to reconcile it with betrayal. "He's been my lawyer for 15 years. He was at Noah's funeral. He helped me search for the person responsible. He was covering his tracks," I said quietly, making certain no one suspected him. "Why would he want Noah dead?" "Power. Control of your operations. With Noah gone, you had no heir. Vincent positioned himself as your closest advisor, your most trusted confidant. He was building alliances with the Rossi family, planning to eventually remove you and merge your organizations under his control. Noah was just the first obstacle." Damon was silent for a long moment. "You couldn't have known all that 3 years ago." "No," I admitted. "That night, all I knew was that 2 men were planning to murder a child in my care. I had maybe 30 seconds to decide what to do. I didn't know if you were involved. I didn't know who in your organization could be trusted. So I made a choice. You decided to play God. I decided to save a life," I corrected. "Dr. Harrison left for a break around midnight. The floor was understaffed, typical for night shifts. I waited until I was certain no one was watching. Then I moved Noah to a private recovery room in the basement. It's where they used to keep terminal patients for end-of-life care before the hospital built the hospice wing. No one uses it anymore." "You hid him in a basement?" "I kept him alive," I said firmly. Then I went back to his original room and prepared everything to look like he'd coded. I triggered the alarms, called for Dr. Harrison, and when he arrived, I told him Noah's heart had stopped and I'd been unable to revive him. Dr. Harrison tried for 20 minutes, but of course it didn't work. Because Noah wasn't in that room anymore. "Jesus Christ," Damon breathed. "Dr. Harrison pronounced him dead at 1:47 a.m. I filled out the death certificate myself. Cause of death listed as cardiac arrest secondary to traumatic injuries. Then I volunteered to prepare the body for the morgue, which meant I was alone with Noah again." "How did you get him out?" "My Aunt Grace worked as a nurse at St. Catherine's before she retired. She still had connections, still had access. I called her that night, told her I needed help with something urgent. She arrived within an hour, no questions asked. We wrapped Noah in blankets, put him in a wheelchair, and walked him out through the morgue exit. To anyone watching, we were just 2 nurses moving a body." Damon's hands tightened on the wheel. "He was still unconscious?" "Yes. I'd sedated him to keep him quiet and calm. Grace drove him straight to her cottage in Seabrook. It's a small coastal town, 3 hours north. Quiet, isolated, the kind of place where no one asks too many questions. I stayed at the hospital to finish my shift and maintain appearances. And then what? You just showed up at my house asking for a job. 3 weeks later, yes. I saw the job posting for household staff. Your previous maid had quit suddenly. I applied, got hired, and started working in the mansion. I needed to be close to you, to watch for threats, to figure out who wanted Noah dead and why. You gave up your career, Damon said slowly. You were a nurse. You threw that away to scrub my floors? I threw it away to protect your son, I said. Being a maid meant I was invisible. No one pays attention to the help. I could move through your house, listen to conversations, observe who came and went, and I could visit Noah regularly without raising suspicion. Every week, I'd drive to Seabrook on my day off. To anyone watching, I was just visiting family. Does he remember me? The question came out broken, barely a whisper. No, he was 4 years old when it happened. The trauma, the head injury, the time that's passed. He doesn't remember anything before waking up at Grace's cottage. We told him his parents died in the accident. We told him Grace was his grandmother who'd taken him in. It was easier than trying to explain the truth. Easier for who? Damon's voice turned sharp. Not for me. I've spent 3 years thinking my son was dead. Do you have any idea what that does to a person? Yes, I said quietly. I watched you grieve every single day. I saw you at his grave. I served you dinner while you stared at nothing. I heard you through your study door late at night when you thought no one was listening. I know exactly what it did to you. Then why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't know if I could trust you. The words hung between us. That night in the hospital, I made a split-second decision based on incomplete information. For all I knew, you'd ordered the hit yourself. Maybe Noah was from an affair you wanted erased. Maybe you'd changed your mind about having an heir. I'd seen enough darkness in that ER to know that parents sometimes hurt their own children. I would never... Damon started. I know that now, I interrupted. I've spent 3 years watching you. I've seen how you visit his grave every week. I've seen the photos you keep in your desk drawer. I've seen you refuse to let anyone touch his room. You loved him. You still love him. But I didn't know that 3 years ago, and I wasn't willing to risk Noah's life on an assumption. Damon was quiet for several miles. We passed through a small town, its streetlights casting orange shadows across his face. When did you figure out it was Vincent? About 6 months into working at the mansion. I started noticing patterns. Vincent would have private meetings with people I didn't recognize. He'd take phone calls in corners where he thought no one could hear. Once, I was cleaning the library when he was in your study, and I heard him mention the Rossi family. That got my attention. The Rossis have been trying to move into our territory for years. Exactly. So I started paying closer attention. I followed Vincent a few times on my days off. Photographed him meeting with known Rossi associates. Started piecing together bank records, offshore accounts, paper trails. Vincent wasn't just your lawyer. He was building a shadow empire underneath yours, waiting for the right moment to take over. And Noah's death was supposed to be the first step, Damon said. Yes. With no heir, Vincent could position himself as your successor. Then, eventually, he'd arrange an accident for you too. Something that looked natural or unavoidable. The organization would pass to him by default, and the Rossis would have their foothold. But Noah didn't die. No. So Vincent's been waiting, watching, probably wondering if he should try again, or if too much time has passed. My guess is he thinks Noah is truly dead, and has moved on to planning the next phase. Which means you're in danger. Damon glanced at me. Is that why you're still here? To protect me? To protect both of you? I said. Noah isn't safe if you're dead. And you aren't safe while Vincent still has access to you. I should kill him. You should gather evidence first, I countered. If you kill him outright, the Rossis will know something's wrong. They'll investigate, and they might discover Noah. But if you expose him properly, with proof of his betrayal, you can eliminate him and the Rossi connection in one move. Damon considered this. You've been gathering evidence? For 3 years. I have photos, recorded conversations, financial documents, everything you need to prove Vincent's guilt to your organization and to the families who respect your leadership. Once you present that evidence, Vincent will have nowhere to run and no one to protect him. Why didn't you bring this to me sooner? Because I needed to be certain, I said, and because I needed to make sure Noah was safe first. If Vincent even suspected Noah was alive, he'd send people to find him. Grace's cottage isn't a fortress. It's just a small house by the ocean. I needed time to plan, to prepare, to figure out how to protect Noah while bringing down Vincent. And then I found that photograph. Yes, which accelerated everything. I looked at him. You can't let Vincent know you've discovered Noah is alive. Not yet. If he realizes the truth, he'll panic. Panicked men make desperate choices. So what do you suggest? You meet Noah. You spend time with him. You build a relationship. And while you're doing that, I'll help you finalize the case against Vincent. Once we have everything in place, once Noah is secure and protected, then you make your move. Damon nodded slowly. And Noah? What do I tell him? The truth, eventually. But not tonight. Tonight you're just a friend. Someone I trust. Someone who wants to meet him. We can't overwhelm him with revelations all at once. He's my son, Damon said, his voice breaking. I've missed 3 years of his life. I know, and I'm sorry for that, but we have to think about what's best for Noah now. He's 7 years old. He's been through trauma. He has a life he understands, a routine that feels safe. We introduce you gradually, let him get comfortable. And then when the time is right, you tell him who you really are. How long will that take? I don't know, I admitted. It depends on Noah, on how he responds to you, on how well you connect. Damon exhaled heavily. I've spent 3 years imagining what I'd say to the person who killed my son. Now I find out he's alive, and the person who took him is sitting next to me. And I don't know whether to thank you or throttle you. You can do both after Noah is safe, I offered. He almost laughed. Almost. Tell me about him. What's he like now? He's smart, I said, softening. Really smart. He loves puzzles, building things with his hands. Grace taught him to fish, and now he spends hours on the pier trying to catch anything that bites. He's kind, too. There's a stray cat in the neighborhood that he feeds every morning. He named it Captain, even though it's definitely female. Does he go to school? Grace homeschools him. We couldn't risk enrolling him anywhere official. Too many records, too many questions. But he's learning well. Math is his favorite. He can solve problems I can't even understand. He gets that from his mother, Damon said quietly. She was brilliant with numbers. I know. Grace told me about her, about how she died when Noah was born. Complications during delivery, Damon said. They couldn't stop the bleeding. I held Noah for the first time while my wife died 10 feet away. He paused. Losing her nearly destroyed me. Losing him too. I don't think I ever really recovered. You didn't lose him, I said. He's been safe this whole time. Because of you. Because someone had to make an impossible choice, and I happened to be there when it needed to be made. We drove in silence for a while longer. Eventually, the highway gave way to smaller roads, and the smell of salt water drifted through the vents. Seabrook announced itself with a weathered sign and a population count under 5,000. The town was dark this late. Most houses shuttered for the night. Grace's cottage is on the north edge, I directed, past the marina, near the cliffs. Damon followed my instructions, navigating narrow streets until we reached a small house perched above the rocky shoreline. Lights glowed in the windows, warm and inviting. A small garden stretched along the front, and a porch swing moved gently in the ocean breeze. That's it, I said. Damon pulled to a stop, his hand still gripping the wheel. He's in there right now? Yes, probably asleep. It's after 2 a.m. I can't believe this is real, Damon whispered. I can't believe he's really alive. He is. And he's waiting just beyond that door. But Damon, I turned to face him. You have to be ready for this. He doesn't know you. He might be scared. You have to let this happen slowly. I understand. But his voice shook, betraying how much this was costing him. We got out of the car. The ocean crashed against rocks below, a constant rhythm that had probably lulled Noah to sleep 1,000 times. I led Damon up the porch steps and knocked softly, a pattern Grace would recognize. The door opened within seconds. Grace stood there, her silver hair pulled back and her eyes sharp despite the late hour. She looked at me, then at Damon, and understanding crossed her face immediately. He knows, she said. He knows, I confirmed. Grace stepped aside. Come in, but be quiet. Noah's asleep in the back room. We entered a cozy space filled with worn furniture and the smell of cinnamon. Photos covered the walls, mostly of Noah at various ages, smiling, playing, growing. Damon stopped in front of a picture of Noah holding a fish, pride evident in his little face. He caught that last summer, Grace said softly. Nearly pulled him off the pier. I've never seen a child fight so hard to land a fish. Damon reached out, his fingers hovering over the frame. He's so big. 7 years old, Grace said. Growing faster than I can keep up with. Can I see him? Damon asked, his voice barely audible. Grace looked at me. I nodded. This way, Grace said, leading us down a narrow hallway. She pushed open a door to reveal a small bedroom bathed in moonlight from the window. And there, in a bed covered with a blue quilt, Noah slept peacefully. His dark hair spread across the pillow, his chest rising and falling with deep, even breaths. One arm curled around a stuffed shark, the other flung out to the side. Damon made a sound somewhere between a sob and a laugh. He moved into the room like he was approaching something sacred, something that might disappear if he got too close. He knelt beside the bed, staring at his son's face with an expression of pure wonder. Noah, he whispered. My son, my beautiful boy. Noah stirred slightly but didn't wake. Damon reached out, his hand trembling, and gently brushed hair from Noah's forehead. Tears streamed down his face, unchecked and unashamed. I thought I'd never see you again, Damon murmured. I thought I'd lost you forever. I stood in the doorway with Grace, watching a father reunite with his son, and for the first time in 3 years, I felt like maybe I'd made the right choice after all. Damon rented a room at the Seabrook Inn under a false name, paying cash and avoiding any paper trail that might lead back to him. For the first 3 days, he barely left the hotel except to visit the cottage. He'd arrive each morning at 8, knock softly, and wait for Grace to let him in. Noah would be eating breakfast, usually oatmeal with berries, and he'd look up with curious brown eyes when the stranger entered. Noah, this is Damon, I'd said on that first morning. He's a friend of mine. He's going to be staying in town for a little while. Noah had studied Damon with the serious expression children sometimes get when meeting new adults. Do you like fishing? Damon had laughed, caught off guard. I haven't been fishing in years, but I'd love to learn again. I can teach you, Noah had offered. I'm really good at it. I'd like that very much. Those first few days were careful, measured. Damon would sit at the kitchen table while Noah finished breakfast, asking questions about school, about the cat Noah fed every morning, about what Noah liked to build with his hands. Noah answered easily, comfortable in his own home. Unaware he was talking to his father. I watched them together, seeing the similarities I'd noticed years ago in the hospital. They had the same eyes, the same tilt of their heads when thinking hard about something, the same habit of drumming fingers against surfaces when impatient. Noah was a miniature version of Damon, and it broke my heart that neither could acknowledge it yet. On the 4th day, Damon brought a chess set. Do you know how to play? He'd asked Noah. No. Is it hard? Not once you learn the rules. Want me to teach you? They'd spent 3 hours that afternoon on the porch, Damon explaining how each piece moved while Noah absorbed the information like a sponge. By the end of the day, Noah had won his first game, albeit with significant coaching. You're a natural, Damon had said, pride evident in his voice. Can we play again tomorrow? Absolutely. That evening, after Noah had gone to bed, Grace made tea for the 3 of us. We sat in the small living room, the ocean wind rattling the windows, and talked about logistics. He's getting attached, Grace observed, looking at Damon. Noah doesn't warm up to strangers easily, but he likes you. The feeling is mutual, Damon said quietly. He's incredible, smart, funny, kind, everything I hoped he'd become. The question is what happens next, Grace continued. You can't stay in Seabrook indefinitely. People will start asking questions. I know. Damon ran a hand through his hair. But I can't leave him. Not now that I've found him. You might have to, I said carefully. At least temporarily. Vincent can't know you've been gone this long. If he suspects something, if he starts asking questions about where you've been, then he might figure out Noah is alive, Damon finished. I understand. But I'm not going back to that mansion and pretending nothing has changed. I've spent 3 years grieving. I'm done with that. So what's your plan? Grace asked. I need to neutralize Vincent first. Gather all the evidence, present it to the families, and remove him permanently. Once he's no longer a threat, I can bring Noah home. How long will that take? A few weeks, maybe a month. Damon looked at me. You said you have evidence, financial records, photos, recordings. I need all of it. It's in a storage unit in the city, I told him. I couldn't risk keeping it at the mansion. Too easy for someone to find. Can you get it to me? Yes, but you need to be careful how you use it. If Vincent realizes you're building a case against him, he'll run or fight back. Either way, it could get messy. Let it get messy, Damon said coldly. He tried to murder my son. Whatever happens to him, he's earned it. Grace set down her teacup. And what about Noah? When were you planning to tell him the truth? Damon hesitated. I don't know. When the time feels right. The longer you wait, the harder it will be, Grace warned. He's a smart child. Eventually, he's going to notice the way you look at him, the way you react to things he says. He'll figure out something is different. Then I'll tell him soon, Damon said. After Vincent is dealt with. After I know it's safe. That could be weeks away, I pointed out. What are you going to do until then? Keep visiting as a family friend? Unless you have a better idea. I didn't. None of us did. So we settled into an uneasy routine. Damon would spend his days at the cottage, building a relationship with his son while pretending to be nothing more than a kind stranger. At night, he'd return to the hotel and call his second-in-command, James, to check on the mansion and make certain Vincent hadn't noticed anything unusual about his absence. By the end of the first week, Noah had started waiting for Damon at the window. "He's here!" he'd shout when the Mercedes pulled up, racing to open the door before Damon could knock. They fell into patterns. Mornings were for chess on the porch, Damon teaching strategy, while Noah learned to think 3 moves ahead. Afternoons meant fishing off the pier, Damon baiting hooks and untangling lines, while Noah chattered about the different fish species. Evenings were for building things, usually elaborate structures made from wood scraps. Grace let them use from her shed. "What are we making today?" Noah would ask, his eyes bright with anticipation. "How about a boat?" Damon suggested one afternoon. "A real one that floats. Can we really do that?" "We can try." They spent 4 days on that boat, measuring wood, cutting pieces, sanding rough edges. Damon taught Noah how to read a ruler, how to use a level, how to check angles. Noah absorbed every lesson, his small hands mimicking Damon's movements. "My dad used to build things," Noah said suddenly on the 3rd day, pausing with a piece of sandpaper in his hand. "At least, I think he did. I don't really remember him." Damon's hands stilled. "What do you remember?" "Not much. Just feelings, I guess. Like, I remember feeling safe. And I remember someone with a deep voice reading me stories." Noah shrugged. "Grace says it's normal to forget things when you're little." "She's right," Damon said, his voice rough. "But I bet your dad was a good man. I bet he loved you very much." "Do you have kids?" Noah asked, returning to his sanding. "I did. A son." Damon chose his words carefully. "I lost him a few years ago." Noah looked up, sympathy in his young eyes. "Like how I lost my parents?" "Something like that." "I'm sorry. That must be really sad." "It was," Damon admitted. "But being here with you, it helps. You remind me of him." Noah smiled. "Maybe that's why we're friends. Because we both understand what it's like to lose people." Damon had to excuse himself after that, stepping into the bathroom to compose himself before the tears could fall. When he returned, Noah had already moved on to the next step of the project, humming to himself while working. On day 8, they finished the boat. It was small, barely 2 feet long, but solid and waterproof. They carried it down to the beach, Noah practically vibrating with excitement. "Do you think it'll float?" he asked. "Only one way to find out." They waded into the shallow water, Damon steadying the boat while Noah prepared to launch it. "On 3, Damon said. 1, 2, 3. Noah pushed, and the boat glided forward, bobbing gently on the waves. For a moment, it looked perfect. Then it listed slightly to one side. "It's tilting," Noah shouted. "Quick, we need to balance it." They splashed after the boat, laughing as they tried to adjust it, getting soaked in the process. Eventually, they got it floating properly, and Noah cheered like they'd just won a championship. "We did it! We actually built a boat!" "You did most of the work," Damon said, watching the boat drift. "I just supervised." "You're a good supervisor." Noah grinned up at him, water dripping from his hair. "Can we build something else next time?" "Whatever you want." That night, after Noah had gone to bed, I found Damon sitting on the porch, staring out at the ocean. I sat beside him, pulling my jacket tighter against the cold. "He called me a good supervisor," Damon said quietly, like that's all I am to him. A supervisor, a friend, not his father. "Give it time," I said. "You've been here just over a week. That's not enough time to build trust, let alone reveal something that big." "How much more time? 2 weeks? A month? When do I get to tell my son who I am?" "When he's ready to hear it. When you're ready to say it. When the situation is safe." Damon turned to look at me. "While I'm here playing house, Vincent is still at the mansion. Still moving forward with whatever plans he's made. Every day I'm gone is another day he could be consolidating power or making alliances. James is watching him," I reminded him. "If Vincent makes a move, you'll know. James is good, but he's not me. And Vincent knows it. He's going to notice eventually that I'm distracted, that I'm not as present as I should be. Then go back," I said. "Check in for a few days, make an appearance, show Vincent everything is normal. Then come back here." Damon shook his head. "I can't leave Noah now. Not when we're just starting to connect. You might not have a choice. If Vincent figures out something is wrong, if he starts investigating, he could trace things back to Seabrook. And if that happens, Noah is in danger. So what do you suggest?" "I'll go back," I offered. "I'll return to the mansion, resume my duties, and feed you information. You stay here with Noah. Build your relationship. When everything is in place, when we have all the evidence we need, then you make your move." "You'd do that? I've been doing it for 3 years," I pointed out. "A few more weeks won't kill me." "It might," Damon said seriously. "Vincent is dangerous. If he suspects you know something, he won't. I'm just the maid. Invisible, forgettable, beneath his notice. You're none of those things," Damon said, his gaze intense. "You saved my son's life. You've protected him for 3 years. You gave up your career, your freedom, everything, to keep him safe. That makes you one of the bravest people I've ever met." I looked away, uncomfortable with the praise. I did what anyone would have done. No, most people would have looked the other way. Most people would have convinced themselves it wasn't their problem. You didn't. You stepped up, and you've been carrying this burden alone ever since. He reached over, taking my hand. "Thank you. For everything. I don't think I've said that yet. You don't need to thank me. Noah is thanks enough. Still, you deserve to hear it." We sat in silence for a while, holding hands, watching the waves crash against the shore. Inside, Grace moved around the kitchen, cleaning up from dinner. Upstairs, Noah slept peacefully, probably dreaming about boats or fish or tomorrow's chess game. "When this is over," Damon said quietly, "when Vincent is gone and Noah is safe, what will you do? Go back to nursing?" "I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead." "You should stay," Damon said. "With us. Noah loves you. He calls you his family. And He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I'd like you to stay too, if you want to." "As what? The maid? As whatever you want to be. Lily, you're not just the maid. You're the person who saved my son. The person who's kept him alive and happy for 3 years. The person who's been by my side through all of this without asking for anything in return. That makes you family." I didn't know what to say to that, so I squeezed his hand and said nothing at all. The next morning, I packed my bag and prepared to return to the city. Noah was upset when I told him I was leaving for a while. "But you'll come back, right?" he asked, his lower lip trembling slightly. "Of course, I promise. I just have to take care of some things for work. Will Damon stay?" I glanced at Damon, who nodded. "I'll stay," he confirmed. "Someone has to make sure you practice chess while Lily is gone." Noah brightened at that. Okay. But come back soon, Lily. I will, sweetheart. I hugged him goodbye, hugged Grace, and then turned to Damon. He walked me to my car, his expression serious. Be careful, he said. Don't take any unnecessary risks. Same to you. Build your relationship with Noah. Make memories. But don't push too hard or too fast. I won't. He hesitated, then pulled me into a brief hug. Thank you again. For everything. Stop thanking me, I said, but I hugged him back. I drove away from Seabrook with a strange ache in my chest. For 3 years, I'd been focused solely on keeping Noah safe, on exposing Vincent, on managing an impossible situation. But now, watching Damon and Noah together, seeing the family they were becoming, I realized I'd grown attached to both of them in ways I hadn't anticipated. The drive back to the city felt longer than usual. By the time I reached the mansion, it was late afternoon. I parked in the servants' lot, grabbed my bag, and headed inside through the back entrance. Vincent was waiting in the kitchen. Ms. Morrison, he said smoothly. You've been gone quite a while. Week-long vacation? Family emergency, I said, keeping my voice neutral. My aunt needed help with some repairs at her house. Your aunt in Seabrook? My blood went cold, but I kept my expression calm. Yes, she's getting older. Can't manage everything herself anymore. How considerate of you. Vincent's tone suggested he didn't believe a word. And Mr. Blackwell? I notice he's been difficult to reach this past week as well. I wouldn't know. I'm just the maid. Of course. Vincent smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Welcome back, Ms. Morrison. I'm sure Mr. Blackwell will be pleased to know his dedicated staff has returned. He left the kitchen, and I stood there, my heart racing. He knew something. Maybe not everything, but something, which meant time was running out faster than I'd thought. I pulled out my phone and texted Damon a single word. Careful. His response came immediately. You too. I took a breath, steadied myself, and went upstairs to resume my duties. The endgame was approaching, and none of us could afford mistakes now. Vincent's suspicion hung over the mansion like smoke, invisible, but suffocating. I felt it in the way he watched me during meals, in how he appeared in hallways I needed to cross, in the questions he asked that seemed casual, but carried weight underneath. He was testing me, probing for weaknesses, trying to determine if I was a threat. I played my role perfectly. The quiet maid, efficient and forgettable, who kept her head down and her mouth shut. I cleaned rooms, served meals, and blended into the background while my mind raced through contingencies. If Vincent figured out what I knew, he wouldn't hesitate to eliminate me. But if I could hold out just a little longer, gather the final pieces of evidence, then Damon could make his move. 3 days after I returned, James approached me in the laundry room. He was Damon's second in command, a lean man in his 40s with sharp eyes and sharper instincts. He'd been briefed on the situation, knew about Noah, and had been instrumental in gathering intelligence on Vincent while maintaining his cover. We need to talk, James said quietly, glancing at the door to make certain we were alone. Somewhere private. The greenhouse, I suggested. No one uses it this time of day. 10 minutes later, we stood among overgrown plants and dust-covered pots. James pulled out his phone and showed me a series of photographs. Vincent meeting with men I recognized as Rossi associates. Vincent entering a bank known for facilitating offshore accounts. Vincent at a warehouse on the edge of the city that supposedly stored legitimate inventory, but actually served as a front for weapons trafficking. He's getting bolder, James said. 3 meetings in the past week alone. Whatever he's planning, it's moving into the final stages. Does Damon know? I've been sending him updates. He wants me to move forward with the next phase, but I wanted to check with you first. You've been watching Vincent longer than anyone. What's the next phase? We confront him, present the evidence, give him a chance to confess, and then deal with him accordingly. James's expression was grim. Mr. Blackwell wants Vincent eliminated, but he wants it done properly. No loose ends, no questions, no blowback on the organization. When? Tomorrow night. Mr. Blackwell will return for it. There's a scheduled meeting with the other family heads. Vincent will be there, along with everyone who needs to see him exposed. That's risky, I said. If Vincent suspects anything before the meeting, he could run or strike first. Which is why we need to keep him comfortable until then. Can you do that? Keep acting normal? Give him no reason to think anything has changed? I've been doing that for 3 years, I reminded him. One more day won't make a difference. James nodded. Good. Mr. Blackwell also wanted me to tell you something. After tomorrow, after Vincent is dealt with, you're out. No more pretending to be a maid, no more living in danger. He's making arrangements for you to relocate to Seabrook permanently if you want. What about the mansion? He's planning to step back from operations. Let me handle the day-to-day while he focuses on his son. The organization will continue, but Mr. Blackwell's priorities have shifted. Good, I said. They should have shifted a long time ago. The next 24 hours crawled past. I maintained my routine, scrubbing floors and serving meals, while internally counting down the minutes until Damon's return. Vincent continued his usual activities, attending meetings and making phone calls, showing no sign he suspected anything was about to happen. That evening, Damon arrived at the mansion just after sunset. I was in the kitchen preparing dinner when I heard his voice in the foyer, greeting the staff and issuing instructions. He sounded normal, controlled, exactly like the man who'd left a week ago. No one would guess his world had been turned upside down. He didn't seek me out immediately. That would have been suspicious. Instead, he went to his study and called for his advisors, including Vincent, to convene for the scheduled meeting. I served drinks as they gathered, playing my invisible role while noting every detail. Vincent looked relaxed, confident, completely unaware of what was coming. The other family heads arrived shortly after. 3 men who controlled different sectors of the city's underground operations, who'd known Damon for decades, who respected the power he wielded. This wasn't just a business meeting. This was a tribunal. Gentlemen, Damon began, once everyone was seated. Thank you for coming on short notice. I've discovered something that requires your immediate attention and judgment. Vincent leaned back in his chair. This sounds serious, Damon. What's the issue? The issue, Damon said calmly, is betrayal. Someone in this organization has been working against us, building alliances with our rivals, and planning to seize control through violence and deception. The room went silent. The family heads exchanged glances. Vincent's expression didn't change, but I saw his fingers tighten slightly on the armrest. That's a heavy accusation, said Anthony DeLuca, the oldest of the family heads. Do you have proof? Extensive proof. Damon gestured to James, who began distributing folders to each man. Financial records showing offshore accounts funded by Rossi money. Photographs of secret meetings. Recorded conversations detailing plans to eliminate obstacles and take over operations. 3 years of careful documentation. Vincent's face had gone pale. He opened the folder in front of him, scanning the contents. Where did you get this? From someone who's been watching you for a very long time, Damon said. Someone who suspected you were dirty long before I did. This is fabricated, Vincent said, his voice rising. Someone is trying to frame me. Damon, you've known me for 15 years. You can't possibly believe. I believe the evidence, Damon interrupted. And I believe the testimony of the people you hired to murder my son. The room erupted. The family heads started talking over each other, demanding explanations. Vincent shot to his feet, his face flushed with anger, or fear, or both. Your son died in an accident, Vincent said. A tragic accident that had nothing to do with me. My son died because you poisoned him, Damon said, his voice like ice. You hired men to inject air into his IV line to make it look like complications from his injuries. You wanted him dead so I'd have no air, so you could position yourself as my successor and eventually take over everything I've built. That's insane. Why would I do that? Power, control, greed. Take your pick. Damon stood, walking around the desk to face Vincent directly. You've been working with the Rossi family for years, building a shadow empire underneath mine. You thought you were clever, thought no one was paying attention. But someone was. Vincent's eyes darted around the room, looking for allies, for escape routes. Who? Who's been feeding you these lies? The maid, Damon said simply. The one you've ignored for 3 years because you thought she was beneath your notice. The one who heard you planning my son's murder and decided to stop you. Every eye in the room turned to me. I stood by the door, holding an empty tray, no longer invisible. Her? Vincent laughed, but it sounded forced. You're trusting the word of a servant over 15 years of loyalty? I'm trusting evidence over empty words, Damon corrected. And the evidence is damning, Vincent. Your bank accounts, your meetings, your communications with the Rossis. It's all documented. You're done. Vincent's composure finally cracked. Fine. Yes, I made alliances. Yes, I planned for the future. But can you blame me? You've been running this organization into the ground with your outdated morals and your refusal to expand into new markets. The Rossis offered me a better deal, a chance to actually grow instead of stagnate. And my son? Damon's voice was deadly quiet. Where did he fit into your grand plans? Your son was a complication, an unnecessary heir who would have locked you into the same weak leadership style. I did what needed to be done. The admission hung in the air. The family head stared at Vincent with expressions ranging from disgust to fury. Anthony DeLuca shook his head slowly. You tried to kill a child, Anthony said. A 4-year-old boy. There are lines we don't cross, Vincent. Rules that keep us from becoming animals. You crossed them all. You don't understand, Vincent said desperately. This organization needs strong leadership. Damon is too soft, too concerned with honor and tradition. I could have made us powerful again. You could have gotten us all killed, said Marcus Webb, another family head. The Rossis are snakes. Any alliance with them would have ended with them devouring us from the inside. You're not just a traitor to Damon. You're a traitor to all of us. Vincent looked at Damon. What are you going to do? Kill me? In front of witnesses? That's not your style, Damon. You're too civilized for that. You're right, Damon agreed. I'm not going to kill you. But I'm not going to protect you either. He turned to Anthony. Vincent has been making deals with the Rossis behind all of our backs. He's compromised our security, endangered our operations, and admitted to attempting to murder my son. What do the old laws say about betrayal of this magnitude? Anthony's expression was grim. Exile. Complete and permanent. No family will shelter him. No organization will hire him. No territory will be safe for him. He'll be marked as untouchable. And the Rossis? Damon asked. What happens when they learn Vincent was exposed and admitted to working with them? They'll eliminate him themselves, Marcus said, to distance themselves from the scandal. Vincent won't last a week. Vincent's face had gone white. You can't do this. Damon, please, we can work this out. I'll leave. I'll disappear. Just don't mark me. You tried to kill my son, Damon repeated. And you would have succeeded if not for a 23-year-old nurse who had more courage and integrity than you've ever possessed. There is no working this out, Vincent. There's only justice. Your son is dead, Vincent shouted. He's been dead for 3 years. You're doing all of this over a ghost. My son is alive, Damon said quietly. And he's safe. Because Lily saved him that night while you were planning his murder. She falsified the death certificate, smuggled him out of the hospital, and has been protecting him ever since. Everything you tried to accomplish, all your plans for power and control, they failed. You failed. The revelation stunned the room into silence. Vincent stared at Damon, his mouth opening and closing without sound. The family heads exchanged shocked glances. Your son is alive? Anthony repeated. All this time? Hidden and protected, Damon confirmed. Which means Vincent's entire scheme was built on a foundation that never existed. My heir survived. My line continues. And Vincent has accomplished nothing except proving himself unworthy of the trust I placed in him. Vincent lunged suddenly, pulling a gun from inside his jacket. But James was faster, stepping forward and twisting Vincent's wrist until the weapon clattered to the floor. 2 security guards appeared from the hallway, grabbing Vincent's arms and restraining him. Get him out of here, Damon ordered. Escort him off the property. Spread the word to every organization in the region. Vincent Crane is marked as a traitor. No sanctuary, no quarter, no mercy. The guards dragged Vincent toward the door. He struggled, shouting curses and threats. But they were empty. He'd lost everything in a single evening, and everyone in that room knew what his fate would be. After Vincent was gone, Anthony stood and extended his hand to Damon. "Your son lives." "That's good news, Damon. Better than good. It's miraculous." "It is," Damon agreed, shaking his hand. "And I have Lily Morrison to thank for it." All eyes turned to me again. I felt exposed, vulnerable, but I met their gazes steadily. "Ms. Morrison," Marcus said, "you saved Damon's heir. That's an act worthy of respect and gratitude. If you ever need anything, any of our families will help you. You have our word." "Thank you," I managed. "But all I want is for Noah to be safe." "He will be," Anthony promised. "Vincent's mark will serve as a warning. Anyone who threatens the Blackwell heir will face consequences from all of us." The meeting concluded shortly after. The family heads left with promises of support and unity. James began making calls to spread word of Vincent's exile. And I stood in the study, my hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. Damon approached me once we were alone. "It's over," he said softly. "Vincent is finished. Noah is safe." "What happens now?" I asked. "Now I go back to Seabrook. I tell my son the truth, and I start building the life we should have had 3 years ago." He paused. "Come with me, tonight. Don't spend another night in this house. But the staff, the mansion, James will handle it. I'm stepping back from operations. The organization will continue, but my priority is Noah. I've missed 3 years of his life. I'm not missing another day." I nodded, exhaustion and relief washing over me. "Okay, let's go home." We drove through the night, retracing the route I'd taken so many times. By the time we reached Seabrook, dawn was breaking over the ocean, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. The cottage looked peaceful, smoke rising from the chimney, lights glowing in the windows. Grace opened the door before we could knock. "I saw the car. Is it done?" "It's done," Damon confirmed. "Vincent is finished. Noah is safe." "Good." Grace stepped aside. "He's been asking about both of you. Woke up an hour ago and wanted to know when you'd be back." We found Noah in the kitchen, eating cereal and looking sleepy. His face brightened when he saw us. "Lily, Damon, you came back together." "We did," I said, hugging him, "and we're going to stay for a while." "Really? How long?" Damon knelt beside Noah's chair. "Actually, there's something important I need to tell you. Something I should have told you sooner." Noah looked between us, sensing the seriousness. "What is it? Do you remember when I told you I had a son? One I lost a few years ago?" "Yeah. You said he reminded you of me. That's because you are him, Noah. You're my son. I'm your father." Noah blinked, processing this information. "But my parents died in the accident." "Your mother did," Damon said gently. "But I survived. And so did you. Lily saved you that night, hid you to keep you safe from bad people who wanted to hurt you. She's been protecting you all this time. So you're really my dad?" "I really am." Noah stared at Damon for a long moment. Then he looked at me. "Did you know?" "Yes," I admitted. "I've known since the beginning. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because we needed to make sure it was safe first. The bad people who tried to hurt you, they couldn't know you were alive. But they're gone now. You don't have to hide anymore." Noah's eyes filled with tears. "I thought I didn't have any parents. I thought I was alone except for Grace and Lily." "You were never alone," Damon said, his own voice breaking. "I've been looking for you, grieving for you. And now that I've found you, I'm never letting you go again." Noah launched himself at Damon, wrapping his arms around his neck and crying. Damon held him tight, tears streaming down his face. 3 years of grief and loss pouring out in that single embrace. I stepped back, giving them space, and Grace put her arm around my shoulders. We watched father and son reunite, watched a family begin to heal. And for the first time in 3 years, I felt like I could finally breathe. The first 3 days after the revelation were difficult. Noah processed the truth in stages, oscillating between clinging to Damon and retreating into confused silence. He'd ask questions during breakfast, then withdraw to his room for hours. He'd hold Damon's hand while they walked on the beach, then suddenly pull away, as if remembering he wasn't supposed to trust this man yet. Grace explained it was normal. "He's 7 years old," she said one evening while Noah slept upstairs. "He's trying to reconcile what he knew with what he's learning now. Give him time to adjust." "What if he doesn't?" Damon asked, his voice raw with fear. "What if I've lost too much time? What if he can't see me as his father?" "He will," I assured him. "He already does, in ways he doesn't fully understand yet. You've seen how he lights up when you walk into a room, how he seeks your approval when he builds something. Those instincts don't come from nowhere." "Lily's right," Grace added. "The bond is there. It just needs time to grow roots again." Damon wanted to believe us, but I could see the doubt eating at him. He'd wake up early every morning and sit on the porch, watching the sunrise and probably wondering if today would be the day Noah rejected him completely. Then Noah would emerge, sleepy and rumpled, and climb into the chair beside Damon without a word. They'd sit together in comfortable silence, and some of the tension would ease from Damon's shoulders. On the 4th day, Noah asked about his mother. We were all having lunch when he looked up from his sandwich and said, "What was she like, my mom?" Damon set down his coffee carefully. "She was brilliant, kind. She had this laugh that made everyone around her laugh too, and she loved you more than anything in the world." "How did she die?" "Complications during your birth. The doctors tried everything, but they couldn't save her." Damon's voice softened. "She got to hold you once. The nurses brought you to her, and she held you for maybe 5 minutes. She told me to take care of you, to make sure you grew up knowing you were loved." Then she closed her eyes and was gone. Noah absorbed this quietly. "Were you sad?" "Devastated. But I had you, and that made it bearable. You were this tiny, perfect person who needed me. Taking care of you gave me a reason to keep going. And then I got taken away from you," Noah said, his voice small. "That wasn't your fault," Damon said firmly. "None of this was your fault. Bad people made bad choices, and Lily did what she had to do to keep you safe. I'm grateful she did, even though it meant 3 years apart." Noah looked at me. "You saved me?" "I did what any decent person would have done," I said. "No," Noah shook his head. "Grace told me you gave up being a nurse. You gave up your whole life to protect me. That's more than most people would do." I didn't know what to say to that. Grace reached over and squeezed my hand. "Can I ask you something?" Noah said to Damon. "Anything. Why didn't those bad people try again? After they thought I died, why didn't they go after you?" It was a smart question, the kind that showed Noah had been thinking deeply about everything he'd learned. Damon glanced at me, then back to Noah. "They were working slowly," Damon explained. "Their plan was to remove you first, then wait a few years before coming after me. That way it wouldn't look suspicious. 2 tragedies too close together would have raised questions. But with just one, they could take their time. But now they're gone. Now they're gone," Damon confirmed. "The man who planned everything, Vincent, he's been dealt with. He can't hurt anyone anymore." "Good," Noah said with surprising fierceness. "He shouldn't be allowed to hurt people." That afternoon, Noah asked if we could work on a project together. Not just him and Damon, but all of us, including Grace. "I want to build a birdhouse," he said. "A big one that lots of birds can use." We spent the next 2 days on that birdhouse, working in Grace's backyard with wood and nails and paint. Noah directed the operation like a tiny foreman, telling each of us what to do and inspecting our work with exaggerated seriousness. Grace handled the painting, creating elaborate designs on each panel. I cut wood to Noah's specifications, while Damon showed him how to properly hammer nails without bending them. "This is what families do, right?" Noah asked at one point, his hands covered in paint. "They build things together?" "Yes," Damon said, his throat tight. "This is exactly what families do." When we finished, we mounted the birdhouse on a post near the cliff edge where birds could easily find it. Noah stood back, admiring our work with obvious pride. "It's perfect," he declared. "The birds are going to love it. We make a good team," Grace said, ruffling his hair. "Yeah," Noah agreed. Then almost shyly, he looked at Damon. "Can I call you Dad? Or is that too weird? Damon's eyes filled with tears. You can call me Dad. I'd like that very much. Okay, Dad. Noah tested the word, seeming to like how it felt. And Lily? Can I still call you Lily? Or should I call you something else? Lily is fine, I said quickly, not wanting to presume anything. But you're like my mom, Noah said. You took care of me. You protected me. Grace is my grandmother. Dad is my dad. So that makes you my mom, right? I looked at Damon, uncertain. He nodded encouragingly. If that's what you want, I managed, my voice unsteady. I'd be honored. Good. Noah seemed satisfied with this arrangement. Now we're a real family. That night, after Noah had gone to bed, Damon found me on the porch. I was watching the stars, thinking about how drastically my life had changed in such a short time. 3 years of secrecy and fear, and now suddenly I was part of a family I'd never expected to have. Thank you, Damon said, sitting beside me, for everything you've done, for saving Noah, for protecting him, for giving up your life to keep him safe. You've thanked me about 100 times now. I pointed out. I'll probably thank you 100 more. What you did. It's beyond measure. You didn't know me. You didn't know if you could trust me, but you saved my son anyway. And you've been carrying that burden alone for 3 years. I wasn't completely alone. Grace helped. Grace is a saint. Damon agreed. But you're the one who made the impossible decision in that hospital. You're the one who sacrificed everything. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. The ocean crashed against the rocks below, a steady rhythm that had become the soundtrack to this new life. I meant what I said before, Damon said quietly, about wanting you to stay, not just for Noah, although he clearly needs you, but because I want you here. I've been watching you these past weeks, seeing how you interact with Noah, how you handle everything that's been thrown at you. You're remarkable, Lily, and I'd like the chance to get to know you better, not as the maid, not as Noah's protector, but as yourself. I don't even know who that is anymore, I admitted. I've been playing a role for so long, I'm not sure where the performance ends and the real me begins. Then we'll figure it out together, Damon said. No pressure, no expectations. Just 3 people building a life and seeing where it leads. 4 people, I corrected. Grace is part of this too. 4 people, Damon agreed. A family. The word settled over us, warm and promising. A family, not bound by blood alone, but by choice and sacrifice and love. Over the following weeks, we fell into routines. Damon enrolled Noah in the local school, a small building with 2 teachers and 30 students total. Noah was nervous at first, worried the other kids wouldn't like him. But by the end of the first week, he'd made 3 friends and joined a soccer team. Damon purchased a house on the north end of town, a sprawling place with ocean views and enough rooms for all of us. Grace moved in immediately, claiming the downstairs bedroom with the garden access. Noah chose the room with windows facing the water. I took the guest suite, still uncertain of my exact place in this new configuration. Damon transformed one room into a home office, conducting business remotely while James managed operations in the city. He'd kept his promise to step back from the organization, delegating responsibilities and focusing on legitimate ventures. It was a slower life, quieter, but I could see him adjusting to it. Noah thrived. He played soccer, built elaborate projects in the garage, helped Grace with her garden, and slowly opened up about the memories he'd repressed. Small things would trigger recollections. The smell of a particular cologne reminded him of being carried to bed. A song on the radio brought back fragments of his mother's voice. A chess move Damon made unlocked a memory of playing the game when he was 4. I remember now, Noah said one evening, his face scrunched in concentration. You used to let me win sometimes, but not always. You said winning felt better when I earned it. You remember that? Damon asked, his voice catching. I remember lots of things now, little bits, like pieces of a puzzle coming together. Noah looked up at Damon. I'm glad I remember. It makes it feel more real. It is real, Damon assured him. All of it. And we're going to make new memories too. Better ones. 3 months after we'd settled into the new house, Damon sat me down in his office. He looked nervous, which was unusual for a man who'd commanded criminal empires with absolute confidence. "I've been thinking," he started, "about the future, about what happens next for all of us." "Okay," I said cautiously. "James has been running things well in the city. The transition to legitimate businesses is progressing smoothly. The families respect the arrangement. Vincent's exile served as a warning to anyone who might have considered similar betrayals. Everything is stable. That's good, which means I can focus fully on being here, on being a father to Noah, on building a life that doesn't involve looking over my shoulder constantly." He paused. "And I want you to be part of that life. Officially." "I am part of it," I said. "I'm here, aren't I? You live in the guest suite like a visitor. You treat this house like a temporary arrangement. I want you to know it's not temporary. This is your home, Lily, for as long as you want it to be." "Thank you. I appreciate that. That's not all." Damon pulled out a small box. Not a ring box, something larger. He opened it to reveal a key. "This is for you. Legal ownership of this house, put in both our names. You're not a guest. You're not an employee. You're family. And I want the paperwork to reflect that." I stared at the key. "Damon, that's too much." "It's not enough," he countered. "You saved my son. You gave up everything to protect him. A house is the least I can offer." He set the box on the desk between us. "I know this has all moved quickly. I know you probably need time to process everything, but I need you to understand something. What I feel for you. It goes beyond gratitude, beyond respect. I care about you, Lily, deeply, and I think maybe you care about me too." "I do," I admitted quietly. "But I don't know if what I feel is real or just a product of the situation we've been in. Everything has been so intense, so concentrated. How do I know I'm not just caught up in the drama of it all?" "You don't," Damon said. "Neither do I. Which is why I'm not asking for any promises or commitments. I'm just asking you to stay, to give this a chance, to see where it leads without any pressure." I picked up the key, feeling its weight. "What does Noah think about all this?" "Noah already considers you his mother. He's made that clear. And he's asked me multiple times when you and I are getting married, which I've told him is way too premature to discuss." I laughed despite myself. "He asked you that?" "Last week. Apparently one of his school friends has parents who got married last year, and now Noah thinks all adults who live together should be married. I explained that relationships are more complicated than that." "What did he say?" "He said adults make things too complicated, and we should just decide if we want to be together or not." Damon smiled. "He's not wrong. He's 7. 7-year-olds have clarity. Adults lose somewhere along the way." Damon's expression grew serious again. "I'm not asking you to marry me, Lily. Not yet. But I am asking you to consider the possibility, to think about building a future together. Not just as Noah's parents, but as partners." I looked at the key, then at Damon. "Okay. Okay? Okay, I'll stay. I'll see where this leads. No promises, but I'll give it a real chance." The relief on Damon's face was palpable. "That's all I'm asking." 6 months later, James came to visit. He arrived on a Saturday morning, his car packed with files and updates. We sat in the living room while Noah played outside with friends, and James laid out the current state of affairs. "Vincent was found 3 weeks after his exile," James reported. "The Rossies handled it quietly. No connection back to us. The other families have accepted the new structure. Your territory remains intact, and the legitimate business ventures are profitable." "Any threats?" Damon asked. "None. Your presence here is known but respected. No one is looking to challenge you, and Noah's existence has been accepted by those who need to know. He's protected. Good." Damon leaned back, satisfied. "And the mansion?" "Being maintained. I've kept a skeleton staff, just enough to prevent deterioration. If you ever want to return, it's ready. But there's no pressure. The organization doesn't need you physically present to function." "I'm not going back," Damon said firmly. "That life, that house, it belongs to the past. This is my future now." James nodded approvingly. "You look different. Happier. Younger, somehow. I feel different." Turns out having your son alive and safe does wonders for mental health. After James left, I found Damon on the porch watching Noah play soccer with his friends. The boy had grown taller in the past 6 months, his confidence blooming with each passing week. "Do you miss it?" I asked. "The power, the control, the empire?" "Sometimes," Damon admitted. "But then I watch Noah score a goal or hear him laugh, and I remember what's actually important. Power is empty if you have no one to share it with. Control means nothing if you're controlling a lonely existence. I'd rather have this simple life with Noah and you and Grace than all the empire building in the world." That's very philosophical for a former crime boss. Former crime boss who's learning to appreciate soccer games and parent-teacher conferences. He smiled. "Though I did threaten a kid who was bullying Noah last month. Damon, you can't threaten 7-year-olds. I didn't threaten the 7-year-old. I had a conversation with his father about appropriate behavior and the consequences of allowing children to become bullies. The father was very receptive to my points." "I'm sure he was," I said dryly. Noah scored a goal and turned to wave at us. We both waved back, proud parents watching their son thrive. "I love you," Damon said suddenly. "I should have said it sooner, but I love you, Lily. Not because you saved Noah, though that's part of it, but because of who you are. Your courage, your integrity, your kindness, the way you make Noah laugh, the way you challenge me when I'm being unreasonable, the way you've adapted to this strange new life without losing yourself in the process." I looked at him, this powerful man who'd become gentle through loss and love. "I love you too. I think I have for a while now, but I was afraid to admit it." "Afraid of what?" "That it wasn't real. That once the danger passed and life became normal, the feelings would fade. But they haven't. They've grown stronger." Damon took my hand. "So what do we do about it?" "I don't know. Maybe we just keep doing what we're doing. Building a life together, raising Noah, being a family, and maybe eventually we make it official," Damon suggested. "When the time feels right." "Maybe," I agreed. Noah came running up to the porch, breathless and excited. "Did you see? I scored 2 goals." "We saw," I confirmed. "You were amazing. Can we have pizza for dinner to celebrate?" "Absolutely," Damon said. "Go tell Grace." Noah raced inside, shouting for his grandmother. Damon and I remained on the porch, holding hands and watching the sun begin its descent toward the horizon. 3 years ago, I'd made an impossible choice in a hospital corridor. I'd saved a child's life and changed the course of my own forever. Now, sitting beside the man I loved, in a home filled with laughter and safety, I knew I'd make the same choice again. Not because it was easy, but because some decisions transcend logic and fear. They come from a place deeper than reason, a place where courage and love intersect. Noah's voice drifted from inside, arguing with Grace about whether pizza counted as a healthy dinner. Damon squeezed my hand, and I squeezed back. We were a family, complicated and unconventional, built from tragedy and held together by choice, and that was more than I'd ever hoped to find.